Hello, everybody. My name is Adam Thorne, and welcome to the Australian Aviation Podcast. I am joined, as ever, by the real star of the show, Jake Nelson. Jake, how are you?
I'm too humble to accept that designation, Adam. True though it is.
Right. Anyway, before we usually obviously talk about the week's news and we do our shout outs, but earlier today, so we're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Earlier today, I got the best email I've received in my time in the hallowed throne as editor of Australian Aviation. I'm not sure if he's going to mind us reading this out.
The Plane of Thrones?
The Plane of Thrones, as I dubbed it a couple of years ago. But I don't mind if I hope he doesn't mind us reading it out, but I'm so excited. I'm going to read it out anyway. So this email is from Owen Horton. Hello, Owen. Hello, Owen. Hello, Owen. Yeah, hello, Owen, if you're listening.
Hello, Owen.
Hello, Owen. Yeah, you see what happened there. The email starts with a very good morning, Adam, from Casey Station in Antarctica. My name is Owen Horton, and I'm currently wintering down in Antarctica as part of a 77th Australian National Antarctic Research Expedition. My job is to look after the logistics and supply of Casey Station, along with 30 other expeditioners, including trade meteorologists, doctors, chefs, engineers, and a station leader. We are spending 13 months living down south on the continent. Currently, the temperature is hovering around -30, which is much colder than Sydney. And the peak wind speed this week
You are dressed for -30,
I am
though,
dressed for -30, yes. And the peak wind speed this week was 70 knots. Until the sea ice melts around October, we are completely cut off from the outside world. A big thank you for hosting a wonderful and informative podcast. I am an avid listener and enjoy listening to the episodes down south. So what this means is we actually have people listening to this in Antarctica.
We're on every continent now,
We are
Adam.
on every continent. Now, I wouldn't say that I disbelieved Owen, but we went to Lindsay, our fabulous kind of head of production here at Momentum Media, the company that owns Australian Aviation. I said, can we verify this? Can we verify this? And she was able to delve into like the analytics under the bonnet, and she found out we have had downloads or essentially views of the podcast from Antarctica. And this means we have now, since the time we started this podcast, had listeners on every continent in the world. That's amazing.
Well, you haven't read out the next part, Adam.
The next part, yes. Well, we're getting to that. As a way of saying thank you, if you are free on June the 21st, you would be most welcome to join our midwinter celebration. Please see attached invitation. Attire is strictly black tie, and if you plan on bringing your own aircraft, we will need 48 hours notice to groom the blue ice runway. FYI, we only have single beds and space is limited. So if you're intent on bringing a +1, brackets assuming Jake, you would likely need to share. The midwinter swim is optional but encouraged. Water temperature is around -1.8 degrees currently, but rest assured it's warmer than the -30 ambient air temperature. Thanks again for your hard work producing the podcast. I've attached a few photos from the station for your interest, including our DC-3 station aircraft, which we charter from Ken Borek in Canada. I have it on good authority that CGJKB, that's the Rego, is a 1943 built airframe which flew during Operation Market Garden. That never ceases to amaze me. I work in the aviation field when I'm not in Antarctica, so if there's anything anything you would be interested in knowing, don't hesitate to reach out. Owen, we would love to come to this party. However,
the Australian Aviation, private jet isn't really suited for the weather conditions.
No.
It's a bit short notice as well. The other thing is we looked at this invitation and it does say only long-term lodgings can be organised, minimum stay 4 months. And while we appreciate, I don't think Adam and I would be able to share a room for 4 months.
No, it's bad enough sharing an office. That would be a bit too difficult. But thank you so much for the invite. Now, obviously, Owen, we're gonna send you a proper email. But if you are listening to this, and you probably will be listening to this, send us a selfie of you and your crew. We'll absolutely get this on our socials. And also, Owen, we're a huge fan of your huge fan of your work, and I know as well the RAF and Aviation is very much involved in this. We would love to do a feature on you. We would love to do a feature on you and have you in the magazine. So please get in touch. It would be absolutely fantastic. But genuinely, Owen, you made my day. I mean, it's amazing. Antarctica. People listen to us talking nonsense every week. And it's
Well, it's not
extraordinary.
a lot else to do down there, is there?
I mean,
you'd
don't put
imagine?
it like that. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, these people probably could and should be shivering to death. And the only thing
Let's not
keeping them
go
going-
with the should, Adam.
No, it's very cold. It's very cold.
I don't think anyone should shiver to
Well,
death.
no, not should. But the point is that I'd like to think we're doing our bit to keep these people warm.
It's the incandescent rage they feel every time I talk.
Well, whatever it is, we're doing some good in the world. We're doing some good. Anyway, a couple more shout-outs before we steam into the news. So we have been talking about the Australian Aviation Awards, which will be taking place on Thursday, the 29th of August at the Star in Sydney. Submissions have now closed. They've actually closed. Not like last week where they closed, but we had a nod, wink, wink, and they were actually open. These are completely shut. So we will be getting in touch with you. I think it's in a week or two's time to let you know if you have been nominated or if you are a finalist. So keep your eyes peeled for that. We're going to let you know. And obviously you do have a chance if you want to come along for the evening to go and buy some tickets. If you visit australianaviation.com.au, you can find out all the information. And also, more excitingly, technically, today we have technically launched our Australian Aviation Summit that will be taking place on the same day at the Star in Sydney. So we're going to have the awards in the evening, the summit during the day. Thank you so much to our principal partner, Leidos, who have come on board to support us, and also our other sponsor, Copilot, as well. Going out the website and go and have a look. So the kind of a gist of the summit is we're going to be looking at the future of aviation and all of the biggest topics. So we're going to be looking at sustainability, diversity, how we tackle workplace challenges, which are still ongoing post-COVID, and also looking at future aviation technologies and the aviation green/white paper, which, God willing, would have been published in the weeks before the summit takes place. So we're going to have a bit of a debrief, what you like, what you didn't like. It's a great opportunity to come along and listen to lots of very senior people in the industry. It's also a great chance to do a bit of networking as well. So if you want to come along for the day, listen to the panels, listen to our keynote presentations, and then you can come along in the evening for a bit of drink and a bite to eat. Go and have a look at our website. Get involved.
It's going to be a great day, Adam. I mean, this is the first Australian Aviation Summit we've done, but the Space Summit every year is always a major event.
Exactly.
And we've got plenty of other summits here at Momentum Media, and I think it's about time that Australian Aviation had its own summit.
So so the company Momentum Media, we sort of took over Australian Aviation 4.5 years ago now. And so we held off a little bit on doing the awards because of that COVID business, which shut down the world, which made it very difficult. So we're now on our third Aviation Awards, and this is our first summit. So do get involved. You get to say you've gone to the inaugural one. So no one will ever be able to beat that. You can have better, but you can never beat the first. You can come along, maybe watch history being made.
Yeah, it's like the Sydney 2000 Games. So far, no games has been declared as the best games ever, which means Sydney's games were still the best games ever.
I think London 2012 generally considered to be better.
No, did they say best games ever?
Yeah, they did. Of course they did. That was, admittedly, they said that in the UK. I imagine in Australia they said, actually no, because I imagine most people in Australia said the Melbourne Games was better. Didn't that happen like 40 years before?
Well, the Sydney Games were then declared the best games ever, which means that the Sydney Games superseded the Melbourne ones if they were indeed declared the best games
so then
ever.
Potentially Brisbane could supersede
Potentially. But so far, no games, to my knowledge, have been declared the best games ever after Sydney 2000, which means Sydney 2000 still the best games ever.
Wow, possibly.
And anyway, my point is the Australian Aviation Summit will be, by definition, this year the best Australian Aviation Summit ever.
It certainly will be. The good, yes, exactly. Perfect way to wrap up this segment. Right, we should steam into the week's news. Jake, what have we got this week? What have been the biggest topics? Where are we beginning?
So we'll pick up where we left off a few months ago with the battle for Bali.
The battle for Bali. I'm not sure if you termed the phrase battle for Bali, but I love it. The battle for Bali.
This Sunday. In the red corner, Virgin Australia. In the also red corner and also orange corner, Jetstar.
Oh, shouldn't do that.
No, it goes great.
Anyway, you may recall that a few months ago, Jetstar and Virgin Australia got in, what we call a stoush over extra capacity to Bali. Now, this specifically is, around 2,500 extra seats to Bali, leaving. They have to be operated to and from airports other than the major gateways, so other than Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth, including Avalon. And so Virgin and Jetstar, or Qantas for Jetstar, put in these competing applications to the International Air Services Commission to get this extra capacity. And it looks like at this stage the IASC is planning to give these seats to Jetstar. So the draft determination proposes to grant 2,320 seats per week to Jetstar and knock back Virgin's application for 2,464 seats because there is not enough room for both. This decision will allow Jetstar to launch these 10 new Bali services per week.
So this is a knockout blow by Jetstar to Virgin. Now, the interesting thing about this is that pretty much, not the whole industry, but a lot of the industry got behind Virgin's bid. So that's a little bit more about that because it looked like the momentum was very much behind Virgin.
Yeah, so the ACCC came out in favour of Virgin, the TWU, the FAAA, that's the Transport Workers Union and the Flight Attendants Union, and the ACCC argued that it would be more conducive to competition to give these flights to Virgin, but the IASC, now kind of delving into the weeds a bit here, but it looks like the main thing that the IASC was talking about was that the Jetstar flights would be operated as international through flight number. So it would be operated under a through flight number. So it would be like the same flight number from and to international terminals at all 3 points. So departure point, intermediate point, and arrival point. This Jetstar route, by the way, they were looking to go from Cairns, Melbourne, Denpasar, and Adelaide, Perth, Denpasar. So essentially, you'd get on the plane at Cairns, you'd go through to Melbourne, and then you go to Denpasar, and then you get on the Adelaide, the plane at Adelaide, and Jetstar go to Perth, go to Denpasar. But I think you sort of do all the international necessities and the needfuls in the originating airports, so Adelaide and Cairns, if you were getting on there. Whereas these routes that Virgin was planning, Adelaide, Perth, Denpasar, and Gold Coast, Perth, Denpasar, all of the needfuls would be done in Perth. So I think the IASC basically ruled in favour of Jetstar on that case. They said that Jetstar are reasonably capable of obtaining any licenses, permits, or other approvals required to operate on and service the route and of using the capacity that may be allocated under the determination. They have sort of specified that this does not impact on Virgin's existing flights to Indonesia or its ability to utilize capacity allocations that it already has. So, yeah, basically they've ruled in favour of Jetstar because they feel that Jetstar would be more likely to be able to operate this route in the manner that has been specified.
Yeah, so this is a draft determination. So probably this will be the final decision. But as I understand it, the airlines now have a chance to make their case after this. But generally,
submissions on the determination are open until the 20th, so not a lot of time. They have sort of shortened. Normally, the submission period is 10 business days. They shortened this to 5. With quoting them here, having regard to the commercial interests of the applicants and the time elapsed to expedite the application process.
So if you are listening to this from Virgin or Jetstar, and you need to get your application in now.
Well, I don't know why delay. Jetstar would want to make a submission. They've won.
Well, they can still make a submission and say, good work. Great work on that.
I
You did
suppose they could
brilliant
still
job.
make a submission if they want to. I'm not about to tell them that they can't make a submission. That's not my call.
No. Okay, welcome back. So we spoke there about the knockout blow that Qantas or Jetstar landed to Virgin in the battle for Bali. We've actually had a little bit of Qantas news this week. Firstly, let's talk about, we're talking about the Olympic Games, what's going to be obviously a lower tier Olympics in Paris. Nothing compared to Sydney.
We can both agree, Adam, that you think London's best, I think Sydney's best, but we can both agree that Paris clearly inferior.
100%. One of the few things that British and the Australians can come together and agree on is the inferiority of France.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
If you are listening to this in France,
don't listen.
We're correct.
We're not interested.
We're still right.
We're not interested. Yeah, exactly. Sorry. Right, anyway, so basically Qantas have got a new livery for to put on one of their 787s to kind of like celebrate the games or to egg on the Aussie athletes. Tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, this is going to be on VHZNH. And basically they're putting a big Go Australia decal on each side to mark the Olympics and the Paralympics. Once again, the Qantas is going to be serving as the official carrier of both Australian teams. Which is understandable.
I think you get free flights. I would imagine so.
You'd hope so.
Yeah,
you'd hope so. But also I can't imagine who else would be the official carrier because nobody else, no other Australian airline flies as far as Paris. Qantas, by the way, is going to be launching this Perth to Paris route next month. Ahead of the Olympic Games. It's going to be operating 4 times per week during the peak European season, reducing to 3 times per week from mid-August. It will be the only airline in the world flying direct between Australia and France, and it will be using the 787s. But yeah, they've got this big Go Australia decal slapped on either side.
Slapped on
either side.
Yeah, that tells us a lot about what we think of this. Now, firstly, it doesn't make good radio or, in fact, good video podcast to talk about a picture that our listeners and viewers cannot see. But go on the website, you can see it. Essentially, it is Go Australia in kind of big, kind of bold yellow letters with a kind of a big black drop shadow, sort of Microsoft Word style. I'm not sure about this. I don't mind the font, but I kind of think they could have done something a bit more imaginative. Throw a kangaroo in there, koala.
It's a bit word art, isn't it?
It is a bit.
Looks like they put it together in Microsoft Word.
They slapped it on. Yeah, no, I don't mind the idea of them having a special livery. Totally, and also Go Australia. They could think of something a bit more interesting.
Yeah, Aussie.
Yeah, exactly. People love that sort of stuff.
Bonjour. We are going to kick les butts. I don't know. Well,
possibly. That would have been a bit more controversial. But if you are a plane spotter, VHZNH is the one you want to look out for. The other piece of Qantas news, which is a little bit more interesting, is that Qantas have made 2 Byron Bay locals who set up Trip a Deal, a package holiday company, very, very, very happy and very, very, very rich. Tell us a little bit more, Jake.
Oh, it's your story, Adam.
It is a bit. So, yeah, no, you're completely correct. So, I think it was a year ago or a couple of years ago.
2022.
2022, there you go. So, Qantas bought a majority stake in Trip a Deal. So, Trip a Deal is a package holiday company, but it's kind of not in a funny way, it's like a funky package holiday company because rather than just... So I think of a package holiday, just, a week all-inclusive in Ibiza, Magaluf. You go there, your summer girls included, Champions League on the telly, Pedro, get me another drink, mate.
Adam, the longer you talk, the more British this is getting.
This is true. So for me, that's a decent package holiday. You got near
flying
the beach.
out on Ryanair.
Yeah, flying out on Ryanair, near the beach, lovely pool, all your booze is free. You can go partying on a Saturday night. Absolutely wonderful. Get absolutely sunburnt. Come back peeling. Job done. Booked it, packed it, done. Brilliant. That to me is a package holiday. Trip a Deal.
This is easily the most British
it's brilliant.
segment of the story you've ever done.
It's brilliant. England, like trash the hotel, go home. I didn't never trash the hotel.
And trash the Ryanair jet, that needs help.
Right. So that's what I think of a package holiday. This is like cool package holiday. So what they do is they make like a bespoke package holiday. So I think they do one to Japan and they're like sort out your whole itinerary. Like they drive you in a coach between place and place, take you on a tour to see all the sites. So it's kind of a bit funky, a bit different. This thing's become quite successful. So Qantas bought a majority stake. This works really well for both parties because there's like, what do you call it? Not quantities of scale. What am I talking about? Like when they help each other basically because obviously they don't have to worry about paying for the flights anymore. They've got the whole Qantas infrastructure behind them. So they now have come in and bought the remaining 49% for, I think it was $200 million?
$211 million.
$211 million. And so this company is very cool, based in Byron Bay. And these two guys that run it, or did run it, they look like the two most Byron Bay people ever. So then their life is now made. They're having a cracking time. So as part of the deal, those two founders are going to finally depart, but it will still be an independent company. The other clever thing about this is obviously, apart from having the kind of might of Qantas behind you, what it also does is allows people to use their Qantas points, their loyalty points, to book their packages. So obviously the big moan, or not the big moan, but the big aggrievement over the last few years is that we have all these Qantas points and supposedly some would say you can't use them for enough things or that the points have been devalued. The whole point of doing this is it gives them another thing they can spend their points on. So it's another offering that Qantas Loyalty has over its rivals at Virgin Velocity. So it does make sense. But I think best of luck to the pair that set it up. Whatever name's there. It is
Norm Black and Richard Johnson.
Yeah, they look very, very happy. There's a picture of them having a laugh of the new Qantas Loyalty CEO, just presumably thinking about all the money they've made. I mean, it's pretty good.
Yeah, you'd have to think that they'll be able to. They're in kombucha for life.
Yeah. Have you ever been on a package holiday, Jake?
I don't think I've been on a package holiday.
Right.
No.
So one day, I reckon later this year, me, you, Ibiza a week.
That seems a bit far, Adam.
Nah, it'd be all right.
Seems a bit of a long time to be out of the office.
No. So we're going to go there, Ibiza, for a week. San Miguel's on tap. Only the little skewies.
How do you propose we get to Ibiza?
Well, I mean, presumably, if you are listening and you run a package holiday company to Ibiza and you want to send me and Jake out there, we'll go out there, spend a day's drinking, night out partying, file some stories in the morning.
Couple of 30-somethings just tearing it up in the Ibiza club scene.
So what will happen is we're going to a big club in Ibiza and I'll be like, oh, I'm Adam from the Australian Aviation Podcast and Mrs. Jake from the Australian Aviation Podcast.
And they'll say, who?
No, they won't. They'll be like, oh my God, I listened. If they're listening to Antarctica, presumably they're listening it to in Ibiza, Ayia Napa, all that kind of stuff.
I can't fault your logic.
They'll love it. Anyway, it'll be great. Right, go on, Jake. What's up next story-wise? What else can we talk about?
From more good news for Qantas to a bit of bad news from Virgin. News that could have been worse, admittedly, but we had some dramatic scenes over New Zealand earlier this week. Flight VA148 from Queenstown. Witnesses on the ground saw flames shooting out the back of its engines.
Yes, and so the initial view, obviously this is only 24 hours old, if it was a bird strike.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of people outside of aviation think it's quite extraordinary, the idea you can have a bird strike, but birds can do a hell of a lot of damage.
Apparently they're not uncommon in that particular area.
No, but the problem is usually if you have a bird strike, it doesn't lead to a fire. Usually there's a malfunction, I'm bodging the science, and the aircraft just turns around and comes back home, which is kind of what it did this time. I think it landed in Invercargill. But one of the things that was extraordinary about this is obviously a lot of people got their phones out on the ground and were taking video, and you can see the fire, you can see it lit up. So quite a dramatic incident. Absolute kudos to everybody on that aircraft, to the crew, to the pilot, the first officer, everybody at Virgin who did an absolutely bang-up job. Aircraft landed without incident. Everyone was absolutely fine. I can only imagine the panic on that flight, particularly after we've had weeks after the incident with the turbulence. People would have been more heightened state of emotion. People would have seen the flames possibly outside the window. So this
loud bangs, apparently.
Loud bang, never good when you're on a flight. Probably a few people crying, understandably. So 10 out of 10 to the Virgin crew and everybody on board for doing an absolute bang-up job.
And I mean, it goes to show as well how good Virgin can be. Because if this was a Ryanair flight, they would have scraped the bird off the inside of the engine and served it up on the next flight for 10 quid a plate.
yeah, they would have done. They would have done. Yeah, somebody they'd open the door. Open the door. Someone get that bird out. Someone get that bird out. Get some salt and pepper. Yeah.
It's like a giant food processor and oven. Yeah, it's like an air fryer.
Yeah, no, maybe this is a future invention. We'll cook your food mid-flight. We'll particularly fly through a bird-prone area and get you some dinner.
Yeah, and all the passengers who are obviously strapped to the wing on the Ryanair flight in the cheap seats would have had one hell of a show.
They would have. We put on a fireworks show just for you. But when you land,
that'll be 10 quid, please.
Yeah, no, they'll definitely charge you. They'll definitely charge you. So we've had that. So we will. So we're presenting the podcast on Tuesday. This news broke Monday late afternoon, early evening. We will keep on top of this story. At the moment, all we know is a bird strikes, but I would imagine the ATSB will be all over this. Find out what happened.
And the working with the authorities in New Zealand as well.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a couple of other stories. One is actually quite a sad story, and we don't actually know that much about it. But a lot of you will remember the incident in the Gold Coast over Surfers Paradise. It was in January last year, and this was a mid-air collision between two SeaWorld helicopters. And what happened is that the helicopter sort of taking off collided into a helicopter coming into land. The helicopter taking off crashed, and I think it was 3 or 4 people on board sadly died, and a number of the others were injured. But the other aircraft, the other helicopter, managed to land safely, and everybody survived okay. And the ATSB at the time, their Chief Commissioner Angus Mitchell, said it was a remarkable manoeuvre and averted a far worse situation. So the pilot, Michael James, legitimately a hero, like in a very difficult situation, managed to save a lot of lives. He very sadly died at the end of last month. This was revealed by 7 News, and we don't really know that much more of it than that, but he was only 53. But incredibly sad news there, because the Gold Coast, this mid-air collision, probably the most high-profile crashes we've had in Australia in a number of years. So we're very sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and apparently, according to your story, Adam, diagnosed with cancer 3 months after the incident.
Yes.
So, obviously, hearts go out to the family and to as well all the people who he managed to save on that day, because they're probably taking this news hard as well.
Yes, because I think 4 of the people on board just after the incident, they released a statement about this and just said, to our pilot, through all the chaos, landed the helicopter safely, keeping us and other bystanders safe. You are our hero. Thank you very much. So it was an amazing story, and we're very, very sad to hear that news. Some other, we're going to have to do another Bonza story. We haven't heard much on the Bonza front since we recorded our last episode, so the kind of the latest. You can probably do a kind of previously on Bonza.
Previously on the Australian Aviation Podcast.
Yeah, that's good. All right, I do. So previously what we heard is that, again, it's a very tricky situation, was that all of the staff, or the vast majority of the staff, have been essentially made redundant. They've been sacked. And the kind of the good news is this means that kind of legally they are now able to go and get full-time jobs elsewhere without that hindering their ability in future to get some of their money back. However, they have still not liquidated the company. So this is the administrators, Hall Chadwick, still not liquidated the company. So what that means is, as of now, it is impossible for the staff to get the money back via the government's Fair Work Entitlement Scheme, which basically kind of insures or covers you if a company goes under. So they're still in limbo. But the other kind of group of people that are in limbo is obviously the destinations that they flew to, because the whole point of Bonza, we said before, they flew these kind of point-to-point routes, which means they flew from holiday destination to holiday destination. And in the vast majority of the routes, they were the only carrier flying. And this was great for the destinations they flew to, because it's kind of new tourists. It's people they wouldn't have had previously. But it's obviously, this is a disaster for those towns who become to rely on the tourism. It's also a disaster for the airports and all the kind of infrastructure they built out. So tell us a little bit more about what we found out this week, Jake.
Yeah, so this was kind of the latest is that the mayor of Sunshine Coast Council, Rosanna Natoli, has written to the Premier of Queensland, Stephen Miles, basically saying, the collapse of Bonza could cost the region more than $100 million. And, the state government needs to step in and help because, the Sunshine Coast was getting a lot of benefits from Bonza while it was operating. More than 20% of the activity at Sunshine Coast Airport, more than 490,000 additional passengers. And, she's basically said, around 150 Bonza jobs were based in the region. Local businesses, including suppliers, cleaning, catering, support services, the tourism industry are going to be impacted by the collapse. She says that, quote, many of these businesses will be now joining the reported 60,000 creditors in a lengthy process with the hope of recouping some of their losses. The number of indirect jobs affected by the sudden closure is also likely to be significant, with dozens of businesses impacted. The majority of products sold on board Bonza were supplied by 11 southeast Queensland-based suppliers. She said, while we are hopeful a solution might be found to allow Bonza to resume operations, the likelihood of this outcome now appears remote, which is why we need Queensland government support now to mitigate the impacts on our community.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, one of the kind of concerning things of those directly employed by Bonza who were at their Sunshine Coast base, I mean, obviously there aren't necessarily many aviation jobs in the Sunshine Coast. The entire operation was built around Bonza, so it makes it very difficult for them. And as Jake pointed out there, we think of the creditors, they're not necessarily kind of faceless investors. They're airports, and they are all sorts of people, that are linked in, and the maintenance companies, etc. And they have staff to employ as well. So that was always the balance between when do we sack staff, when do we liquidate the company. These are all people that are going to struggle to get their money back.
Yeah, they had this all Aussie menu was one of their big selling points that you can buy from on board. And I think a lot of these products that they were selling came from these small food and beverage suppliers. These locally based, locally owned suppliers that were giving that had these big contracts with Bonza to supply for food, and are now that contract's gone. That work's dried up.
Yeah, and if you have been affected by this and you want to get in touch, send us an email at media@australianaviation.com.au. Okay, welcome back. So, Jake, we've got another 10 minutes or so. What other news we got to talk about?
How about some airport infrastructure stories, Adam?
Bloody love an airport.
We love airport infrastructure around here. So we'll start in Sydney. The Western Sydney Airport Metro has had another couple of big breakthroughs recently, quite literally.
Here he goes. What could he mean?
3 tunnel boring machines, 3 out of 4, breaking through and completing their journeys for the Western Sydney Airport Metro. So Catherine, Eileen, and Peggy.
Go on, make the joke. Make the joke. Go on.
Joke?
You know exactly the joke you're going to make about the names of those 3 things.
Well, like Hamilton.
No.
The musical Hamilton.
You know what? Go and make the joke. Don't make out like you don't know what the joke is. It's awful when you do this. It's a real bad.
Well, why don't you tell me what the joke is, and then I'll make it.
The joke is that one of the tunnelling machines is called Eileen.
Yeah.
And at this point, Jake, you used to go, "Come on, Eileen."
I can't do it now. You've just explained the joke.
Yeah. Anyway, well, I set you up for it, and you've shown me. You pulled the rug from under me. I tried to set you up. I rolled the ball across the ball across the goal. There's an open goal. You just got to tap it in, and you're just staring at me, being like, "That pass wasn't good enough."
Well, I got to keep you on your toes somehow, Adam. Anyway, Catherine, Eileen, and Peggy, the Schuyler sisters, have finished their journeys. The 4th machine, Marlene, as of sometime last week, had about 230 meters to go. And they've created these tunnels over the past 13 months that are going to house this 23-kilometre track, which is going to connect the airport and the Bradfield Aerotropolis in the south to St Mary's in the north. The state government said that work is already underway at St Mary's to construct these metro station facilities, and construction in coming months will begin on Orchard Hills, Luddenham, and Bradfield stations. They're looking to have this metro line up and running by the time that the airport opens in 2026, with an estimated travel time of 20 minutes between St Mary's and the Aerotropolis. These
tunnel boring machines, they are extraordinary things because they look like what you'd imagine them to be, just like a big ramming circular thing.
Well, they look like they will come out of the ground and eat you if you walk with too much rhythm.
They do, but they should really get a job as a producer on this show because that's usually where those kind of beasts lie. But no, it's pretty extraordinary. Right, we've probably got time for one more story, Jake. What are we going to pick?
Continuing on the subject of airport infrastructure, there's good news for Cairns and Mackay airports who have secured 100. The owner, North Queensland Airports, has secured, I think, a $155 million loan from the Northern Australia Infrastructure Facility to do some pretty major refurbishments.
What are we talking about?
So Cairns is going to have the first major refurbishment of its international terminal in the approximately 30-year history. So there's going to be expanded baggage claim belts, renovations to the International Departure Lounge, new airside infrastructure, so new aircraft stands, taxiways, upgrades to existing taxiways. And meanwhile, over at Mackay, there's going to be upgrades to the runways, taxiways, and aprons, and a new mixed retail and commercial precinct.
Sounds pretty good. So hopefully some new comfy seats and stuff as well.
Hopefully, yes.
New vending machines.
Cairns is the seventh busiest airport for international traffic in Australia. You've got destinations Tokyo, Osaka, Singapore, Shanghai, Bali, Auckland, and Port Moresby. So, a lot of international traffic goes through Cairns, particularly for the tourism market. It's big on tourism up there. And according to the government, these works are going to deliver $1.4 billion in economic benefits, creating 500 jobs in the region during construction and almost 1,500 in operation.
Good news. Good. Bloody love a bit of infrastructure. Good news.
Yes, yeah, and hopefully as well, this will sort of help Cairns and Mackay because sort of harking back to what we were talking about before. Cairns and Mackay, I believe, both destinations for Bonza, so hopefully this can help them attract more traffic, particularly on the international side of the equation.
Good news. Well done. Well, anything else? Anything else before we wrap up?
That seems to be about it from our side, Adam.
Quite-ish news week, I've got to say. So if you are working in the aviation sector, can you do something?
Oh, no, actually, there is one more thing.
Every week you do this. Every week.
Not on purpose this time. Not on purpose this time.
You either do it or I set you up for it and you're like, I don't know what you're on about. No. You're awful. Go on. Go on.
The last Cathay Pacific jet that was stored in the Alice Springs Boneyard has gone home to Hong Kong.
Good. Well, I remember when we were when this all happened, and it was one of the most extraordinary stories because they got lots of funding from the state government to kind of cash in on this. Because
the territory government.
But the territory government, yes, you know what I mean. They got a lot of.
We are sticklers for accuracy here on Australian Aviation.
Yes, we are sticklers for accuracy. And they got a lot of money to expand it. And the argument they were making is that obviously they're going to make a lot of money during COVID, which I'd imagine that they did. But also long term, there's always a use for these things because one, they're used to store aircraft, particularly due to the kind of almost once every 10 years crisis you have in aviation. But they're also can be used, to upgrade aircraft or to break them down. That's why they're called boneyards. And what will happen is airlines will fly their aircraft and in the corner of the desert, they will be quietly torn apart. So it was a smart long-term investment. If you are from the boneyard or if you have an insight on how many aircraft are still there, I would love to know because it's hard to find out. Presumably, there must be some kind of up-to-date satellite imagery we can get so we can go and count the aircraft and see how it's doing.
Potentially, yeah. What's interesting about this one is this A330-300, it was BHLV. It was actually the first Cathay Pacific aircraft to be stored in the boneyard.
So that poor aircraft, it's had a hard time. It's the first thing you'd think
it's the last Cathay Pacific
rubbish,
aircraft to leave the boneyard. So it left earlier this month, and it's as of last week, it was undergoing hangar maintenance checks in Hong Kong before it returned to service.
I wonder what crime that aircraft committed to be sentenced to prison for that long. That feels very cruel.
It knows what it did, Adam.
It does know it did. It does know. Well, I'm all about it's gone to the correction centre, as you call them here. It's done its time. And hopefully it will come out a new aircraft, having learnt from its mistakes.
A reformed aircraft?
A reformed aircraft, yes.
Yeah, no, we don't want any aircraft recidivism.
No, we don't.
I think these facilities should be about aircraft rehabilitation rather than aircraft deterrence.
Yes, exactly. Well, congratulations to that rehabilitated Cathay Pacific aircraft. Right, is that it? You're genuinely not going to interrupt me? You're not going to ruin me one more time? That's absolutely it. Can I end the show?
Oh, go on.
Right. On that note, we will...
Actually, there is one more thing.
Go on.
Goodbye to our listeners.
Oh, no, you're awful. Right, yes, as he said, goodbye from him, goodbye from me, and we will see you on the show the same time next week. See you later.
See ya.